Hi, I'm Joanna. Welcome to my channel. I'm going to review 4 books, 3 fiction, 1 nonfiction. Let's get started. My first book is The Hill by Harriet Clark. Now, this novel is not an autobiography, but it kind of felt like it read like one. The author did live a similar life where her parents were both imprisoned when she was a child, and she was raised by her grandmother. That's the theme of this story as well. So this novel is told in the voice of the main character, Susanna, when she was a young child, and it continues on into her adulthood. When Susanna was a very young child, 8 months old, her mother was involved in a bank robbery. She was the getaway driver, and during that process, a security guard gets shot. And Susanna's mother, whose name is Helen, gets life in prison. And the author writes about what it's like for Susanna to live with her mother, who lives in prison. The prison is set on top of a hill, and Susanna's grandfather would take her to visit her mother often. When he passes away, the grandmother, who continues to hold bitter resentment toward her own daughter, refuses to take Susanna to visit. The relationship between Susanna and her grandmother is complicated because of the circumstances and because of the bitterness the grandmother holds. I really like the way the author fully develops each character, that it pulls you emotionally into the narrative. I found the story captivating because prison life is something that lives all around all of us. Most of us stay far removed from it. After reading this novel, I think it is important we consider the life of prisoners and of the families affected by prison life, mainly because circumstances happen and everyone is vulnerable. This novel is worth the read. I give it 4 stars. Novel number 2. Kin by Tayari Jones. There are 2 main characters in this novel, and the story is told in both their perspectives. Vernice and Annie were cradle friends, as they call themselves. They both grew up in Honeysuckle, Louisiana. Vernice's mother dies at the hand of her father, and Annie's mother abandons her. Both girls are raised by their own grandmother. So the essence of the story is how each girl growing up without a mother has affected their perception in life and of life. So as the girls grow older, we follow them in their different paths. Annie's life is consumed with finding her mother. And Vernice, she finds a family to replace her lack of one. I appreciated the ever so strong bond between these 2 girls. I also sympathize with the emptiness, the desperateness that they each felt and suffered because, of not having a mother. But with that, I still got so frustrated, especially with Annie and her unrelenting search for her mother, just as her boyfriend did in the story. This was incredibly sad. Vernice, on the other hand, while her life wasn't perfect, she had an understanding and a practicality about her future self, and this seemed to help her. The author's writing is very descriptive. For example, she's able to invoke a frustration and sometimes an anger in the reader as she describes the norms of immoral injustices and inequalities throughout the course of the book. And it also gave rise, at least for me, to questions concerning our current situation in our country as far as racism goes. And her character development really created a good visual and insight of each personality throughout the novel. That said, it still was a struggle for me to finish this book. I did finish it, but the story dragged on and on. As soon as I got to that last page, I was relieved. For this reason, I give this 3.5 stars. Novel number 3, Transcription by Ben Lerner. There are 3 separate stories in this very short novel. In the first story, the narrator interviews his 90-year-old mentor. but the recording is fake because he accidentally drops his phone into the sink, and then this creates complications with his interview. The second story is about this couple whose very young daughter has an eating disorder, and this was one of my favorite stories. I liked the way the author approached this subject. The third story is a monologue. It's about a son and his relationship with his father. So basically, this is a story about human experiences. It's about love. It's about, art. It's about our changing society, technology, etc. And we find this in each of the stories. This is a very intense reading experience. It's beautiful, but just know that there are 3 separate stories going in because that will alleviate some of the confusion. So I really enjoyed this author's prose. It just reads so beautifully. However, I felt like something was missing, and that's not very popular with this book. Overall, I give this 3.75 stars. Book number 4, my nonfiction book, Turning to Stone, Discovering the Subtle Wisdom of Rocks by Marcia Bjornerud. I'm sorry, Marcia. So this author is a young geologist, and I read the reviews, and they did appreciate or mention her genius in knowledge of rocks. They didn't appreciate her interjecting some of her personal life. I personally did not mind that at all. I enjoyed reading about her social interactions, experiences, even as a young student. She talks about being in a very lopsided demographic where she is, there's a small percentage of women in her field. And then she talked about her family life, and I liked reading between the two. But what I really enjoyed about this author is the way she explained the science of rocks. She made it very simple and enjoyable, really. I was really fascinated when she was explaining the carbon cycle. As we know, most of us know that carbon is stored in plants and in the soils, but I didn't know that 99.9% of carbon is stored in carbonate rock, or bilistone. It was so interesting. She also revealed a little bit about the complicated relationship between, big oilers and geologists. She explains that while the companies are generally bad for the earth, that geologists actually benefit from their extractions from the earth. She also explains that much of what we know about sedimentary rocks, paleontology, evolutionary patterns, and long-term climate change have emerged from the decades of research by oil companies, ironically. I listened to this book on audio, but honestly, I really think this one would be better read because you would see the names and the spellings of each of the rocks, and there's probably maps, etc. I think this book is for a smaller niche. If you like rocks or interested in them, you are going to enjoy this book. I give this 4 stars.